Hi students! In this lesson, we're going to cover how to prepare your Adobe Illustrator files for import into After Effects. Okay, first things first, let's make sure we have Illustrator open and our newsworthy Illustrator file open. Before we get into any of the pre-production, make sure that all your designs are pretty close to final. That means that your compositions are great, the color is perfect, all of your leading and kerning is dead on, and all your vector icons are exactly the way you want them to be. So the pre-production process can be a little bit tedious depending on your designs, but it's pretty easy to understand. Our first step is to get all of these artboards into their own separate files, and there's a really easy way to do that. If we go under File, Save As, what I want you to have is a folder for Newsworthy, then an Assets folder, and then I have a Style Frames folder, and I'm going to save my Newsworthy document into that. So again, make sure you do a Save As, and it's going to pop up Illustrator options. We're going to click Save each artboard to a separate file, and we're just going to have all. Unless there's specific ones that you want, you can always just do range. So I'm just going to stick with all, hit OK. And what this will do is in my Style Frames folder, it will make an individual Illustrator file for each style frame. Okay, now I want you to open one of your style frames, and you can just work along with me. And the process I'm about to show you will apply to all 6 of your style frames. So again, I'm just going to do one, but you can apply this to all 6. Under Window, I want you to make sure that you have your Layers palette open. And a lot of times when we work in Illustrator, it's a little bit different than Photoshop, where we'll make a layer for every single thing we're working with. In Illustrator, it's a lot easier to kind of click through how we can select things. So we have the natural tendency of just kind of going with the flow and laying it all out, and it ends up on one layer. So this is fine when you're working, but if you were to bring this into After Effects, you need to make sure that everything you want to animate is on its own separate layers. So like your type and any of your vector icons, you want to make sure are separate pieces so that you can animate them. So you can do that a couple different ways. One of the ways is that you could select the type, you could cut it, make a new layer, and then paste that in the same place. And that's fine. If you're comfortable with that and you want to build your file out that way, that's absolutely fine. A second way you can do it is by simply clicking on that entire layer, going to this little right menu here, and selecting Release to Layers and Sequence. Now what this does is it takes all these paths and guides and actually converts them to their own individual layers. Right now, if you don't do that, you can't take them outside of the original layer build. So just kind of understanding how that works. So if I select it, then do Release the Layers Sequence, it will create a layer file for every single object on the current canvas. So I have thousands here, and what we'll want to do is just drag them outside of the layer and make sure that you label them. So I'm working on my type right now. So you can see it takes a little bit of time, but anything you want to animate, you want to make sure that it's outside of this. You can also hold Shift and select them all and drag them up. Also, sometimes what happens Within this process is there's extra layers that we don't need, so you want to make sure you come in here and delete everything. And then lastly, the layer 1 is deleted. Yep, layer 4 is nothing. So now I just come through and label everything. So I'm probably gonna, make the body animate and also make the head animate, so I want them as two separate pieces. And your naming system is whatever makes sense to you. So I'll go through and label each individual layer because those will be the layers that I import into After Effects and animate. There's one other thing to think about. Let me open one more file. So for example, if I am doing the same process for this example, this style frame, if I want to animate each one of these lines in, again, you want to make sure that they're all their own separate layer so that you can animate them. Also, if you have a repetition of like a water drop like I do here, I don't need to import every single one of these. I can just have one and then duplicate that in After Effects. So again, you don't have to import everything. If you have, like again, another example is I have a tower here. I probably don't need the second one. So it just depends on how comfortable you are. If you want to import the whole composition as is, you can leave all the pieces and import all the layer files at once. If you're pretty comfortable in After Effects and you feel like you can build the parts inside the program, you can just import one tower or one water drop or one line and just use duplicating to reuse that. So again, there's a couple different ways to approach it. It's what you're comfortable with using. Our lesson has now come to an end. We covered how to set up and prep your Adobe Illustrator files for After Effects. If you have any questions, let your faculty know, and good luck to you.